What is happening, Honey Badger Nation? Happy New Year's. Cuz, what's good?
What's going on, man? Just another day in paradise.
Yes,
Another day here in paradise.
What is it, 80?
Probably it's that or maybe a little warmer today.
Oh, God bless you.
It's been raining a lot.
Yeah. Nice. Well, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody tuning in. Got any questions, thoughts? Throw it in the comments. We'd love to unpack everything for you. I don't know where Al should be jumping in here with us anytime, but cuz little news this morning. Saw the update of Mr. Glenn Sanford moving back into the CEO role. I haven't had a chance to dive into it, but kind of what's your take on it?
Yeah, while he was here in Puerto Rico, he mentioned that he was going to be stepping back into the CEO role. He didn't really give a lot of context as to what that was about, but certainly I'm sure he sees an opportunity to help us grow and wanted to be playing a more active role.
Typically, just because, kind of your vantage point, your viewpoint, just even your experience, why, typically when you see those shuffles, what is the reasoning? And it could be a magnitude of reasons that would cause that. But from your experience and vantage point, why, how come you see those type of moves happen?
Yeah. So, it happens here usually when we're shuffling people into certain positions or creating new roles. He usually steps back into a bigger leadership role. He's done that numerous times since we've been in the company. So it usually has something to do with another key person that's coming aboard or something along those lines. Although he didn't allude to that, I would guess that there's he's stepping back in this role for just a period of time. Maybe we're bringing somebody else on too. Cool. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. Sometimes people might want to read into it. Oh, what's going on? Is it, it's bad? And typically that's not the case, right? It's like you said, it's a strategic move. It's very thought through. As we know, Glenn, really methodically thinks through and strategically thinks through everything. And, one of the little nuggets that he gave and he shared, and it's something I've been, trying to be more intentional with, is he just talked about a lot of his reflective time, and that, for him, he spends, his Saturdays and Sundays just reflecting on the week that was. And then that allows him, when he meets with leadership on Monday, that he's really put some of that in what, kind of our vocabulary around it was that independent thought going into the week. So you have some, you've reflected, you've actually thought through it to be able to bring your thoughts, your perspective into the conversation. And, we've put certain tools and time in the calendar for that. And I think, what we've always loved about the morning huddle and the end of the day reports is that if you use those tools correctly, it forces you to have some of that independent thought. So, and I would love for you to kind of expand upon this, but we see a lot of agents that they don't even take time to reflect, but maybe once a year, right? As they're thinking through their new year, they're thinking through this, and then they're going to, make the changes going into the new year. So they have that thought, that reflection once a year. Well, then, we get to working, or we're working together, and then they're like, I got to do this every 90 days. And then it's like, okay, well, you need to be doing that on if you adopt kind of like the Sunday planning process, the reflection time, the lessons learned, you do it once a week. But when you really get it down, and I think this is where a lot of agents need to go with it, is that when things get tough, you have to communicate more, and you got to close the feedback loops. And that's where the morning huddles, that's where the end of the day reports, to where you shorten those feedback cycles in your reflection time so you can make adjustments faster. But I know this is something core to you, core to your, to who you are and your thinking. I would love for you to expand upon it and how come it's so important for agents listening in to be thinking this way.
Well, yeah. I think, the biggest threat I think the biggest challenge that most, agents have for sure, and really any leadership role that you're in, is not, is too much time passing between things that are happening in the business, and not a quick enough feedback loop so that you can make changes and make improvements and continue to move the ball forward. And you lose touch with people that way. Weeks go by, sometimes months go by, sometimes years go by without problems being diagnosed and challenges being overcame. And so it's just, it's a system, it's a process for how do you get feedback in your business? How do you reflect on what's working, what's not working? How do you make decisions? What's your framework for how you make decisions moving forward? And anytime that, I reflect back on times where things weren't getting executed or problems existed for far longer than they should have, it was because there wasn't a tight enough feedback loop. There wasn't a good enough process in place, or it wasn't being followed between me and any of the staff or the team that we had put together. And so certainly it makes all the difference in the world when, especially when you're busy. If you're heavy into production and you do have a team of people around you, there's little time that you have, where you're not busy or face to face with clients. And so, those are the tools that we always use to and improve decision making and solve problems fast, for long periods of time without being addressed.
Too, because I think just kind of reflecting back on it for us, I think the tighter the feedback loops, it allows for more transparency and not having that anxiety, right? Because a lot of people, I think understanding the concept and the difference between, and we get a lot of team members like this, right? And asking the question, are they committed, or are they just being compliant? And so the compliant people, they don't want to talk about those things, right? They would rather time go by and they're just compliant doing their activities, and are they not worried about getting better because they're not committed to the bigger purpose, the bigger vision, the process of improvement. And I think when you shorten those feedback cycles, it allows for more commitment, and it allows for less anxiety. Like the team, like they know, right? And this goes back to the agreements that we have versus expectations. And I think when we let time lapse, then those expectations creep in, and that's where it causes a lot of friction. But communicating more removes a lot of that friction, because you don't feel that overwhelm, that anxiety. It's like, yeah, I'm dropping the ball, I'm missing here. And what do we got to do to get better, to improve upon it? Where are our challenges? How do we design a better plan to get around it? And I just have seen in any of our scenarios, right, when we ratchet down communication at a higher level, man, you talk about pulsing at a better clip. You don't feel the anxiety. Everybody's rowing in the same direction, and it just helps everything all around. But I see so many agents, and I know you have as well, is that when things get tough, they break the communication. They don't communicate enough.
Right. Yeah. It's the last thing that you want to do when things are different or it's challenging or whatever the case may be. You want to ratchet that up as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think it's just a great lesson, listening in. And I think, Coach, I was on Coach's call yesterday, and he had a really, really good point. Getting back to it is, creating the visibility and making sure you're tracking because, hey, here we are, new year. Most people recommit to some type of goal structure, goal process. They have numbers. And he said, track your goal versus your actual. Like he said, be tracking your goal versus your actual on a monthly, weekly, daily basis. And, really just make sure you're handwriting that in. And, we talk about from an automation standpoint and things like that. But here's what we know about automation. Shit breaks. And nobody goes in to look at it and see where it's broken. So they're tracking their numbers. And when you manually, because when you update your wealth chart and you manually have to write that number down, or you write down your activities, you think about it differently than looking at a number on a automated scorecard.
Yep.
And I would love, I think this is I think there's a couple key things that all of us have to recommit to. And I think number one, obviously, is the calendar, because that's where all of our habits live. And two is the tracking. And I know you're passionate about both of those, and kind of speak a little bit here as, we're getting some questions rolling in. Speak to why you're so adamant and so passionate about the importance of those two things.
Yeah. So, I just experience, honestly. I think that, anytime that, you lose somebody, especially like on one of these questions is about tracking back to the organization, which is incredibly hard because generally speaking, the rule of seven, from a leadership standpoint, can you manage and lead on any given basis? And with, 70, 80 people in my organization, it's nearly impossible to do the kind of I'd like to be able to do. But just, having something in place where you're consistently communicating so that you don't have lost sheep. This is a time where, I just got a text message while we were on here. Somebody's losing somebody, an agent that's going to another company, not for a good reason whatsoever. There's a lot of people reaching for straws, looking for something new or something different because they're not plugged in. They're not clearly setting goals. They're not getting on these calls, and, they don't have any funnels up that we've helped them build. Like the people that do plug in, the people that you are getting, you can have all that communication, but if they're not getting plugged in and having success and you don't know that, this is really on you as the leader. Right. And so, unless you like having surprises, or otherwise known as 2x4s that smack you across the, head that you didn't see coming, you got to keep a higher bandwidth. And I lost, someone in my front line that I never thought was going to leave. And I thought I was in the highest of communication with, but I missed one text message. Believe it or not, that was what did it. But had I seen that text message, I would have definitely replied to it. But you got to have some type of system in place. Otherwise you're leaving everything up to chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And where do you think that needs to, like, what would be a good baseline starting process for that to get better?
Hang on one second. Look, who's calling? Mr. Gove.
Mr. Gove. Very cool.
Hey, I'm on a live. Let me call you right back. Bye-bye.
When he calls, you answer, right?
Right. Well, that's an example of great leadership, because he's always checking in. At least, he checks in with me at least every 2 weeks. I would say probably right around every 2 weeks.
That's a great point. Coach talks about it. I love that example right there. Coach talks about, two of your key people a day, right? So if you've got 20, 30, 40 key people, 2 a day, you're cycling through every couple of weeks, right? And so some type of base point, some type of connection. And I know we all need to get better. I'm like, this is a great reminder as well. So being able to keep that feedback loop tight, being able to make sure you're connecting in, being able to love on them. And then, the other question here, cause, how do you encourage the communication? I think it's just, there's a lot, listening, I just finished up the chapter in Goggins' new book of really just, setting the standard, right? Leading by example. And he tells a story where he got smoked, right? And just observing this guy, didn't even think anything about him. And the guy was just going above and beyond, and just really messed with him for like 6 years. It messed with him until he was able to, have an opportunity to redeem, even on the same track, to redeem himself. And it's just a lesson that he said he'll never forget, right? Just that example, just that standard. Recommendation every 2 weeks, frontline, at least every 2 weeks.
Yep. I think you should be sending a video text or a text every 2 weeks. For me, that's basically averages like 4 people a day, something like that. And then, there's a subset of that list. There's a subset of that list that never fucking replies to me. Like, it blows my mind, but no matter what I ask, what I send, I get nothing back. Right. And so, like, I can't drag people to success. I can only reach out and try to help the people that want my help. And then I'm going to continue to play offense and continue to add people to the group. So if those people are, not going to plug in and they're probably somewhat at risk, at least I feel like I did my job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can only get in their headspace so much, right? And you never know if they're not being open and transparent to what headspace they're in, or who's in their environment that's influencing them at the moment. And it's just like you said, there's people making moves for not the right reason. And they just, I mean, is it because they just don't have good decision-making filters?
Yes. I mean, I think that's almost always it. Like if anybody that, and that's why when people came and coached with us, and as you would coach them in over a period of a year or 2 years, or really sometimes it would take that long and sometimes longer for them to really get into that rhythm and get all the little things implemented and get into that rhythm. Well, now they've got the tools in the tool chest to make decisions moving forward. And so they're not just reaching at straws because you taught them the framework of how do you go about making decisions. And just flying by the seat of your pants is a recipe for disaster. I mean, it really is.
It really is. And cause I mean, really to fully implement the foundation and framework, I mean, you need to commit 9 to 12 months really to get that cadence, because you need to go through strategy 2-3 times, right? You need to burn your hand on the hot stove because you think you can do more. And, it's just like we know, right? Most people, you don't die from starvation. They choke themselves out from trying to do too much. And, that process, that commitment, I mean, literally it's a 9 to 12 month process to be able to get that cadence and get that strategic flywheel moving enough. Yet, I read something from Ray Dalio just the other day, and he says it's the two biggest things that block us all. It's ego and it's blind spots. Mm-hmm. And if we understand the concept of outcome over ego, and it's about getting to right. Outcome is getting to right. Ego is trying to be right. And if we can suspend our belief that we have to be right and really get clear, what is the goal? And that's the question that we always challenge and ask ourselves is like, what's the goal? Like, what is the outcome? What is true? What are we trying to get to? And then I can say, okay, well, I'm not trying to be right. I know I'm wrong. Where am I wrong? How can we get to right faster? And then what are my blind spots? And that's what we're talking about with the reflective thinking, the feedback loops, and the difference in the relationship of, and I've heard it from like 3 or 4 people lately. Goggins said it too. I had read it from Jim Collins, and I had read it somewhere else, but they were talking about, understanding your relationship with the window in the mirror. And so many people look out the window and they're pointing at everybody else's flaws. Yes, they won't take the time to look in the mirror and really let that reflection come back. And to me, it's like, we all have blind spots, but that's the beauty of mentorship, of coaching, right? Getting in a tight accountability group, because we all have blind spots, and what we reveal, we can heal, and we're trying to get to right, not be right. So when Dalio said that, I was like, oh, he said, that's the two biggest things is ego and blind spots. And if we have a process to overcome our ego, and we have a process to overcome our blind spots, we can move a lot faster.
Love that.
Yeah, that was good. That was one of my ahas so far for the year.
A good one.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I picked up his principles journal. I'm just getting into the exercises. There's 5 exercises in the beginning that he wants you to go through. And that's where it was one of the exercises where he talks about ego and blind spots. So essentially creating some type of system, process, principle based around how to overcome your ego and how to, have reflectors for your blind spots. It's really good. What's happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys for tuning in. Happy New Year. Hanging out with cousin I. Mr. Stasek is at the doctor's office. He's having a little procedure next week. He's been in some excruciating pain with his shoulder, so I'm going to get him all taken care of, get him back to right. But appreciate you guys jumping in. Any thoughts, questions that you have on your mind? We all have issues and challenges, things we're wrestling with. The only thing I joke about is we joke, right? The only time you don't have issues or challenges is when you're not doing anything. And I know you guys listening in are a bunch of honey badgers. So you guys are doing a bunch of stuff. So where are you stuck? What are you wrestling with? It's what we're here for. I want you guys to jump in. We create a book club around that Red Dalio book. Yeah, you want to lead it? I can't see who it is. We can't see on the StreamYard feed who it is, but I would love for somebody to take the lead on that.
I just ordered it.
Yeah, it's pretty gangster. It is.
I don't have that one. I'm still on Goggins' latest book, which is freaking fire.
It is so amazing, man. I've had to stop and listen and just reflect on it. Yeah, it is. It's he's on another. I mean, what I love about this one is he actually gives some framework of how he goes about his thought process, his mental process. Hey, Rob. Hey, buddy. If you want to put something together, jump in. This the red. It's more of it's a journal. So just give you guys a heads up. It's a journal around how to create principles that serve your life and work through challenges and create foundational principles for you to make better decisions and move your life forward.
Everybody can use that.
Katrina's you have to be committed to the process and separate your A, B, and C players. Absolutely. So I think too, Katrina, and it's kind of where I subscribe. I don't believe you commit and then just jump in and figure it out. I believe you kind of get an idea of what you want. And, I think it was it might've been James. I don't know if it was clear with Atomic Habits. It might've been James Smart. And I know you've recommended a few of his books. There's like a purple one that you definitely recommend.
Yeah, it was one called James Smart.
James Smart. What was it called?
One's called Clarity and the other's called Results.
Yes. And I think that was one of the clarity questions in there. He said, people ask the wrong questions. What do I want to achieve? He said, a better question is, how much pain am I willing to tolerate? And I think, you look at, agents coming in, hey man, I want to build this mega team. And I'm like, okay, let's talk the pain threshold here. What is your pain threshold? And so, that's typically a better question. And starting from there, what is the reverse engineer of that? And is that something you're willing to commit to? And so from there, cause you got to share this, you got to share the ABC, definition, the difference between an A, a B, and a C player. This is like, you guys tuning in, pay attention to what Cuz is about to share, the difference between A, B, and C players.
This is for those of you, depending on where you're at and who you have hired, this is it's funny because every time we have even our event, this last the last event that we had, John, I can't remember who it was that made the comment. It was like, it seems like every time I come to one of those events, I go back and I fire somebody, and that's kind of always been the case because when you have an A player, A players get the job done 90% of the time. That's, they rip things out of your hands and get things done. You can count on them almost every single time they're going to get the job done. B players are who you spend time with instead of your family. And that struck a chord with me at the time, first time I heard it. Mark Chesley, who was one of our mentors in a mastermind group we were in, he made that comment. And I had just remembered spending extra time at the office after hours, trying to lead someone to, become, to get to the next level they needed to get to. And I had that realization that they had all the potential. They did okay work, but they weren't an A player. And the difference is when you're working with a B player, as long as you're there, moving them along and, helping them, in that conversation with them. Well, when you leave them and you go back to doing your thing and you come back to them, they're still right where they were. They didn't pick up a book. They didn't go to that next level without you taking them, dragging them there, basically is what it feels like. And those are the hardest people to level up from because, they're doing an okay job. And that means a lot of times you end up back in that role or, this, the difficulty and challenge of the hiring process and all that kind of stuff. But B players are who you spend time with instead of your family. And then C players, I mean, we all know who the key players are. The ones that don't do the work, that never show up, and that probably have the same potential, but you can just tell that they don't have the drive to want to get to the next level.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And listen, guys, the thing is, and this is the reality, if you're of growth mindset and you are growing and you're growing your business, you will outgrow your people. It's just what happens. And I'll never forget, Clayt's message, ones and threes. That was his concept. People that can, maybe that one assistant or a couple people, or, in tighter markets like we were, where average sales price was low, you got a certain caliber of person that's going to get you to $1 million. But typically those people won't get you to 3 million in revenue. And people that can get you to 3 million in revenue won't get you to 10.
Yep.
And so you have to understand that you will outgrow your people, and that's real hard. And I remember I had a few people that were struggling with that, and they're like, they just won't grow. They won't come along. It's just like, they're not doing what they need to do. And I remember listening to, this question was posed to Andy Frisella. And of course, typical Andy Frisella fashion, he goes, "Did you leave them, or did they choose not to come along?" And that just like, fuck, it was just like, damn, like, I didn't leave them. I was there every day, showing up, leading by example. I was there for them. They maybe just didn't choose to come along, and that's okay. And so I think, what tends to happen, it's that kid syndrome, right? We want it more than they want it for themselves, right? We want it more for our kids than they actually want it for them. And that typically falls in with a lot of our team members, especially early on, right? To where we feel that bond, and in the beginning, it's like family. And so you don't want to leave them, and you just feel this obligation. And I love what V said at Agent to CEO. She said, you got to flip the switch. You got to go from family to team. She said, because family's messy. You let this uncle or this cousin get away with this bad behavior, and you accept it because you're family. We do the same thing when we're small with our teams. We let them get away with it because we're family. And she said, no, we're a team, and we each have an obligation to our part of the team, and we execute at a high standard and a high caliber. And if not, next man up. And so that just really resonated with me when she kind of broke it apart that way. And man, I know you've seen it with so many teams. I mean, shit, we were that way too. And, it was family, and it got messy, and it's just, you're better off thinking as a team than thinking as a family. Because touch on this with Rhonda. How do you attract more agents when you aren't a huge producer? And then what's the kind of the allocation of time to that? It's kind of an, probably some little more context, but I think
it's cutting out. I don't know if my internet's out or what.
Yeah, you're freezing up on us a little bit. Can you hear me? If you want to tackle Rhonda's question.
My internet is all messed up. So I'm getting Starlink. I know that. I'm going to write that shit down right now. Priority.
I don't know if you heard me, but if you can see Rhonda's question, I'd love for you to tackle that for her. Oh, we're losing them. We're losing them. Rhonda, hang tight. We'll get Jay back here. We'll let him handle that. I know of the book, guys. It's just Ray Dalio's Your Guided Journal Principle. It's around principles. It's from his book, but he took it and just the framework to go through how to create the principles that are going to serve you in your life. I was excited about it. Kind of recommitted to the journaling process, so I'm going to utilize that tool to help. Cuz we got you back.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see.
Okay. You want to try and tackle Rhonda's question for her?
Yep. How do you attract more agents when you aren't a huge producer? And production.
We lost you, cuz.
Yeah, we had rain today. I guess that affects the internet here. Can you hear me?
Hey, I'll trade you all day.
Coming in.
I'll trade you all day.
Yeah, this is frustrating.
Yeah. All right. We'll circle back for sure. Yeah. I don't know if you want to just one off and answer that for Rhonda, would be great. But
yeah, invite them to the Friday trainings, invite them to the Thursday trainings. The easiest thing you can do is find people that want to grow and invite them to things where they can learn and grow. And then that's going to start the relationship, start a conversation. That's the easiest way to do it. Certainly share your successes as you're using some of those trainings as well.
100%, man. Don't try to carry that burden all on yourself, man. Utilize leverage. And I'll never forget, our Vincent Koo York City. He said, out of all the things that you can do from agent attraction, he said, if you're going to hone one skill, he said, become world-class at inviting. And if you're looking for where to start, that's where you should start. Just become world-class at inviting. Hey, what are you trying to do? Connect with them, listen to them, say, hey, I've got a great training to maybe plug you into, invite them to a training, invite them to an event, invite them to a 3-way call, and don't try to carry that burden yourself. All right, cuz. No worries. We're gonna wrap as we lost internet and sound with cuz. So appreciate you guys. If you guys need anything or have any questions for us, feel free to reach out. That's what we're here for. And we'll catch you guys next time.